Time doesn't care about you. It doesn't wait for you to get motivated. It doesn't slow down when you're overwhelmed, and it doesn't pause when you're lost. Time moves whether you move or not. And that's why most people never achieve control over their lives. They think time is something they manage, but in reality, time is something they obey. This audiobook is not about productivity hacks or cute little routines that make you feel accomplished without actually accomplishing anything. This is about taking full responsibility for your hours, exposing your excuses, and replacing your illusions with complete clarity. If you want to master time, you have to stop lying to yourself. Time is not the problem, you are, and this audiobook will fix that. Chapter 1. The lie you tell yourself. The biggest barrier between you and mastering time isn't your job, your obligations, or your responsibilities. It's the story you keep repeating to yourself like a broken record. I don't have enough time. That line is the most common, convenient, and destructive lie people tell themselves. It sounds innocent, but it silently destroys your potential because it shifts the blame away from your choices and onto an imaginary lack of hours. The harsh truth is this: you're not short on time. You're misusing it. You have the same 24 hours as everyone else. That includes the people who build companies, write books, raise families, run marathons, or develop extraordinary skills. Time isn't biased. It doesn't give someone an advantage because they're smarter, richer, or more disciplined. The difference isn't the hours, it's how people treat those hours. Most people treat their time like loose change they'll always have more of. They let their days leak away through tiny, stupid, forgettable habits. They scroll on their phones not for minutes, but for hours. They jump between tasks like distracted squirrels, never finishing anything, always feeling busy but accomplishing nothing meaningful. They respond to every notification as if each one is a life or death emergency. They drift into mindless conversations, unnecessary errands, commitments they didn't want, and entertainment they didn't even enjoy. Then they sit back at the end of the day and say, "I didn't have time." No, you handed your time away. Piece by piece, distraction by distraction, excuse by excuse. If you want to master time, the first step is brutally simple. Stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending you're a victim of your schedule. Stop acting like time has singled you out and decided to punish you. If your days are chaotic, draining, or unproductive, it's because you are allowing them to be. And until you accept that reality, nothing will change. Your schedule is not mysterious. It is a mirror. It reflects your true priorities, whether you're willing to admit them or not. If you say your health matters but you don't exercise, your actions reveal the truth. Your health is not a priority. If you say you want to learn a skill but you spend your evenings watching random videos, your actions reveal the truth. Entertainment is your priority, not growth. If you say you want to build something meaningful but you keep procrastinating, your actions reveal the truth. Comfort is more important to you than achievement. That's what makes the "I don't have time" lie so dangerous. It creates distance between your results and your responsibility. It keeps you from looking in the mirror. It protects your ego at the cost of your future. It lets you stay the same while convincing yourself you're trying. If you don't confront that lie, you will never make progress because you will always blame the hours instead of your habits. Time mastery begins where your excuses end. You have to start noticing how much of your day disappears into mental autopilot. Most people live their lives reacting instead of deciding. They wake up and immediately check their phone, letting the world dictate their mood and attention before they even get out of bed. They open a social media app intending to check one thing, and suddenly 40 minutes vanish. They respond to messages instantly, even when the messages don't matter. They say yes to things they should decline. They jump from one task to another without finishing anything. They confuse motion with progress. Then, when the day is over, they claim time betrayed them. Here's the truth. Time didn't disappear. You scattered it. And here's the good news. If you're the one scattering your time, you can be the one who regains control of it. But that won't happen until you fully accept that your time is your responsibility, not your boss's, not your family's, not the world's, yours. Once you drop the lie, something interesting happens. You gain power. You stop seeing yourself as someone who lacks time and start seeing yourself as someone who allocates it. That switch alone changes everything. Instead of saying, "I didn't have time to do this," you start saying, "I didn't choose to make time for this." And that wording stings because it's honest. Honesty forces accountability. Accountability forces improvement. When you start owning your choices, you start recognizing patterns you used to ignore. You notice how much you're distracted. You notice how often you jump into tasks without finishing them. You notice how frequently you check your phone. You notice how much time you spend doing things that feel urgent but aren't important. You notice how little of your day actually aligns with your goals. Once you see those patterns clearly, you can finally break them. That's what rewriting your story looks like. It's not about squeezing more tasks into your day or trying to be more productive. It's about reshaping your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is constantly overwhelmed and start seeing yourself as someone who is in control. You stop glorifying busyness and start prioritizing results. You stop giving time away to meaningless habits and start investing it with intention. Time mastery doesn't start with calendars, routines, or to-do lists. It starts with honesty. It starts with cutting through your own nonsense. It starts with choosing to face the truth you've been avoiding. You have plenty of time, you just haven't been using it well. Once that truth sinks in, everything changes. You stop expecting more hours and start demanding more from yourself. You stop asking for balance and start creating alignment. You stop waiting for the right moment and start building momentum. You stop living like time is something that happens to you and start living like time is something you shape. Mastering time begins with mastering your mind. And the first mental barrier you have to break is the lie you've built your habits on. I don't have enough time. You do. You always did. It's just time to start acting like it. Chapter 2. The Brutal Audit. Before you can master your time, you have to expose where it's actually going. Not where you think it's going, not where you wish it were going, where it is going. Most people have an imaginary version of their schedule in their head, a cleaner, more disciplined, more intentional version that doesn't exist in reality. They underestimate wasted time, overestimate productive time, and lie to themselves about the gap between the two. That gap is where life is lost. A brutal audit destroys that illusion. This isn't about casually guessing how you spend your day. Your guesses are useless. This is about tracking your hours with the same honesty you'd use while counting money. Every minute has weight. Every hour has meaning. And until you can see your time clearly, you'll continue drifting through your days blind, frustrated, and secretly confused about why you never make the progress you claim you want. The audit forces clarity. When you sit down and look at the past 7 days, not in theory, but in hard detail, you will see patterns you didn't know existed. You'll see how often you switch tasks. You'll see how much time you lose in transitions. You'll see how many quick breaks turn into 20-minute detours. You'll see how your mornings disappear before you've done anything meaningful. You'll see how much time you sacrifice to people, conversations, or responsibilities that don't actually matter. Most importantly, you'll see how much of your life you're not actually choosing. You're drifting. And drifting is the opposite of mastery. The brutal audit isn't meant to make you feel guilty. It's meant to make you aware. You cannot fix what you refuse to measure. When you track your time honestly, without excuses, you gain leverage over yourself. You're forced to confront the truth. You're not as busy as you think, you're just unfocused. Here's the reality most people don't want to face. The hours are there. They've always been there. They're just scattered, fragmented, and misused. You can't build anything powerful with fragmented hours. You need intentional blocks of time, and those only appear once you cut the nonsense you've been ignoring. The reason the audit works is simple. It removes your ability to hide. You can't pretend you worked all day when the audit shows you worked for 90 minutes and drifted for the rest. You can't complain about not having time when the audit shows you spent 14 hours on your phone last week. You can't claim your goals matter when the audit shows you didn't invest a single hour into them. The audit exposes the truth, and the truth is always more brutal than your excuses. But here's the part people underestimate. The audit gives you power, not shame. Once you see your patterns clearly, you can break them deliberately. You can redirect your time with intention. You can cut the meaningless activities that drain your energy. You can stop lying to yourself about what's urgent and what's merely distracting. You can design your days instead of reacting to them. You can reclaim hours you didn't even realize were being stolen. And yes, they are being stolen not by other people, but by your unconscious habits. You get lost in tasks that don't matter because you never questioned why you do them. You waste time multitasking because it feels productive, even though it destroys your focus. You say yes to things because you want to avoid conflict. You scroll because you're bored or stressed. You procrastinate because it's easier than doing the real work. And all the while, you convince yourself that these little moments don't count. But they count, they add up, they become your life. That's why you must audit without mercy. Every hour must be accounted for, even the ones you wish you could ignore. The hours you throw away aren't harmless, they represent potential you chose not to use. And potential that isn't used turns into regret later. If you want to stop living reactively, you need to see the raw numbers. You need to face yourself without filters. When you finish a real audit, two things happen. First, you feel punched in the face because you can't believe how much time you wasted. Second, you feel empowered because you suddenly understand how much time you still have. For the first time, you see possibility instead of limitation. You see hours you can reclaim. You see habits you can eliminate. You see distractions you can destroy. You see a path forward instead of a fog. That's the point. Awareness creates opportunity. The audit marks a turning point because it shifts you from guessing to knowing. You stop hoping things will get better and start building systems that make them better. You stop believing your feelings about time and start trusting the data. You stop complaining about your workload and start organizing it. You stop letting life happen to you and start taking control. If you want to master time, you must master truth. And the truth is in the audit, not in your excuses, not in your memory, not in the version of your life you pretend to live. The truth is in the actual hours, the real hours, the documented hours. So here's the bottom line. Track your time with brutal honesty. Don't round numbers, don't sanitize the details, and don't leave anything out. Treat your week like evidence, because it is. It's evidence of how you operate, how you think, and how you live. Your time tells the truth, even when you don't. Once you understand that truth, everything gets sharper. Your decisions get clearer, your boundaries get stronger, and your progress stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling inevitable. The brutal audit won't make you comfortable, but it will set you free. Chapter 3. Your time identity. If you want to master time, you need to understand one thing first. Your schedule follows your identity, not your intentions. People think their lack of time comes from bad routines or poor planning, but that's surface-level nonsense. The deeper truth is brutal. You act according to who you believe you are. Your habits, your discipline, your level of focus, your consistency, your priorities, your standards, all of it is shaped by your identity. If you see yourself as someone who's always behind, you will behave like someone who's always behind. If you see yourself as someone who procrastinates, you'll delay everything important. If you see yourself as someone who can't focus, your mind will scatter the second you sit down to work. Your identity makes the rules, and your behavior obeys them. This is why your attempts to get organized fall apart. This is why your motivation fades. This is why your new routines collapse after a few days. You're trying to layer productivity on top of a weak identity. You're trying to act like a disciplined person without becoming one. That mismatch is exactly why nothing sticks. Your time identity is the invisible structure governing your life. It decides how you approach each day before the day even begins. It determines whether you see your time as valuable or disposable. It influences whether you finish what you start or leave things half done. It shapes your tolerance for distraction, your level of urgency, and your capacity for focus. Most people never examine their identity, so they keep living by old definitions that sabotage their potential. The first step to mastering your time identity is acknowledging the truth. The identity you've been living with wasn't chosen, it was absorbed. You inherited it from your environment, your upbringing, your past failures, your habits, and the people around you. You didn't consciously decide to become the person who's always overwhelmed. You drifted into that version of yourself through repetition. But here's the good news. Identity is not fixed. It's not genetic. It's not permanent. It's a story you tell yourself, and like any story, it can be rewritten. Time mastery requires an identity upgrade. Not a mild adjustment, a complete shift in how you see yourself. You need to become someone who treats time with intention instead of carelessness. Someone who acts decisively instead of hesitating. Someone who follows through instead of sabotaging themselves. Someone whose habits match their ambitions instead of contradicting them. Let's be clear. This isn't about pretending. You don't change your identity by chanting affirmations in the mirror or fantasizing about a new life. You change it by consciously building the traits you want through consistent action. Identity grows out of repetition. You become who you repeatedly are. If you want to see yourself as someone who manages time well, you need evidence, concrete actions that reflect discipline, clarity, and intention. Without evidence, your identity won't believe the upgrade. It'll keep dragging you back to your old patterns. This is why so many people feel stuck. They keep saying they want to change, but their daily actions keep proving the opposite. Identity doesn't listen to promises. Identity listens to behavior. Your job is to create new behavior that forces your identity to evolve. It starts small. You finish a task even when you don't feel like it. You stick to your schedule for 1 day, then 2, then 3. You put your phone out of reach during work. You give yourself one clear priority and actually complete it. You follow through on something you usually procrastinate. These small victories accumulate, and each one sends a message to your identity. I'm not who I used to be. Over time, the message becomes the truth. The people who excel at time management aren't superhuman. They don't have magical levels of discipline. They simply carry a different identity, one that demands a higher standard from themselves. They don't allow distraction to be normal. They don't tolerate chaos. They don't entertain excuses. Their identity won't let them waste time, because wasting time contradicts who they believe they are. Your identity should become your internal pressure, the healthy kind, the kind that keeps you aligned, the kind that pulls you forward instead of letting you slide backward. If your identity tolerates mediocrity, your time will reflect mediocrity. If your identity demands excellence, your time will rise to that level. It's unavoidable. Think about it like this. A person who identifies as an athlete doesn't have to force themselves to train. Training is normal to them. It fits. A person who identifies as a writer doesn't wrestle with whether they should write. Writing is who they are. A person who identifies as disciplined doesn't debate whether to follow through. Discipline is their baseline. Time identity works exactly the same way. Once you shift your identity to someone who values their time, your behavior will start matching that standard naturally. You won't need motivation. You won't need tricks. You won't need to fight yourself every day. Your identity becomes your automation system. But let's be real. Building a new identity requires discomfort. You have to betray your old self. You have to stop living by the easy, familiar patterns that made your life chaotic in the first place. This is where most people fail. They cling to who they were, even though that version of themselves is ruining their future. You have to let the old version of you die, the version that procrastinates, the version that scrolls mindlessly, the version that wakes up whenever, the version that thinks being busy is the same as being productive, the version that settles for excuses. That version has to go, or you will keep repeating the same life. Every powerful transformation starts with the same decision. I refuse to be this person anymore. Once you make that decision, everything changes. You start treating time with seriousness. You start thinking in terms of long-term consequences instead of short-term comfort. You start building habits that reinforce discipline instead of destroying it. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. Identity shapes your hours. Your hours shape your life. Change the identity and the life follows. Time mastery isn't about controlling the clock. It's about controlling the person looking at the clock. When you create an identity that respects time, your entire existence becomes sharper, cleaner, more intentional, and dramatically more productive. You don't just manage time, you elevate it. And once your identity shifts, mastery stops being an effort and becomes your default. Chapter 4. The Priority Paradox. One of the biggest reasons people fail at mastering time is painfully simple. They try to treat everything as important. They convince themselves that every task matters, every request deserves attention, every opportunity must be grabbed, every notification needs a response, and every idea must be pursued. That mindset is exactly why they stay overwhelmed, exhausted, and directionless. Here's the blunt reality. The more priorities you claim to have, the less any of them actually matter. When everything is a priority, nothing is. People love to brag about being busy, having long to-do lists, juggling multiple goals, and multitasking through their day. They wear chaos like a badge of honor. In reality, they're just hiding from the truth. They lack clarity. They haven't decided what matters most, so they pretend everything matters equally. And the second you treat tasks as equal, you guarantee that your time will be wasted on the ones that don't move your life forward. The priority paradox is cruel but unbreakable. You cannot prioritize everything, and you cannot be good at everything. Life doesn't reward spread-out effort. It rewards targeted intensity. Most people avoid choosing real priorities because choosing means rejecting, and people hate rejecting. It feels like closing doors, losing opportunities, disappointing others, or admitting you can't do it all. But that fear of choosing is exactly what traps you. When you refuse to cut, your time gets sliced apart by trivial obligations. When you refuse to commit to what truly matters, you lean on busyness to feel productive. And when you refuse to eliminate tasks that drain you, you convince yourself that this is just how life is. It's not. You're just avoiding the uncomfortable truth that real priorities require sacrifice. Let's break this down brutally and clearly. A true priority costs you something. It costs time, energy, convenience, comfort, and sometimes relationships. Anyone can claim goals. Very few are willing to eliminate the noise required to pursue them. That's why most people stay stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they lack the courage to focus. Mastering time requires ruthless prioritization, not soft prioritization, not "I'll try my best" prioritization. Ruthless, decisive, unapologetic prioritization. You need to start making hard calls. If you say health is a priority, but you can't find 30 minutes a day to move your body, then health isn't your priority, it's your fantasy. If you say building a business matters, but you spend your evenings watching shows and scrolling, then your actions prove entertainment matters more than success. If you say you want to improve your life, but you keep saying yes to every distraction, every invitation, every obligation, then improvement is not your priority, being liked is. Your life is shaped by your real priorities, not the ones you talk about. And your real priorities are revealed by how you spend your time, not how you feel about your goals. The priority paradox becomes even clearer when you understand this. Important tasks are rarely urgent, and urgent tasks are rarely important. The world constantly throws urgency at you. Messages, demands, errands, quick requests, notifications, interruptions. These create the illusion of productivity because they keep you busy. But busyness is the enemy of progress. Busyness is how people avoid doing the real work. Busyness is how people stay comfortably unproductive. Important work is different. Important work is deep, uncomfortable, slow, and often invisible. Nobody sees it, nobody applauds it, nobody demands it from you. Important work is what builds your future long-term projects, skill development, planning, self-improvement, meaningful work, health, focused progress. Here's the trap. Because important work isn't urgent, most people ignore it until their life falls apart. Then they panic, blame time, and repeat the cycle. Time mastery means flipping this dynamic on its head. You must make important work your default and strip urgent nonsense out of your life. This is where prioritization becomes powerful. You stop responding to everything instantly. You stop letting other people dictate your time. You stop treating every request as an emergency. Instead, you operate from a clear hierarchy. What truly matters gets your best hours, your full attention, and your consistent energy. Everything else gets whatever is left, if anything at all. Let's be brutally direct. Your inability to prioritize is sabotaging your life more than any external obstacle. You're not overwhelmed because you have too much to do. You're overwhelmed because you refuse to choose what not to do. Cutting tasks isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of maturity. It's the mark of someone who understands that time is finite and their potential is too valuable to be scattered across meaningless activities. When you start eliminating the noise, your time expands, your focus sharpens, your progress accelerates. You start experiencing momentum instead of constant stress. You want clarity? Here it is. A real priority has 3 traits. It has impact, it aligns with your long-term goals, and it requires your highest quality time. Everything else is optional, secondary, or irrelevant. If a task doesn't meaningfully move your life forward, it doesn't deserve a place in your schedule. Once you internalize this truth, the paradox disappears. You recognize that having many priorities is the same as having none. You realize your energy is limited, your focus is finite, and your time is precious. You finally understand that living with intention means giving your time to what matters most, not what screams the loudest. Mastering time isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, but doing it better, deeper, and more consistently. Your life will always reflect your priorities. The question is whether those priorities were chosen by you or forced on you by distraction, fear, and lack of clarity. If you want control over your time, it starts with controlling what matters. And controlling what matters starts with the courage to choose and to eliminate everything else. That is the priority paradox. And once you conquer it, your entire life changes. Chapter 5. The discipline of saying no. If you want to master your time, you need to develop one skill that most people avoid their entire lives: the ability to say no without hesitation, without guilt, and without apologizing for it. Until you master this, your time will never truly belong to you. You can build the best schedule in the world, set clear goals, and plan your week perfectly. But if you can't protect your boundaries with a solid no, everything will collapse the moment someone else wants your attention. Here's the truth people hate admitting. Most of your stress, overwhelm, and lack of progress is self-inflicted. You keep saying yes to things you don't want to do. You keep agreeing to commitments that drain you. You keep letting other people's priorities overtake your own. And every yes you give away is a slice of your time you'll never get back. Saying yes is easy. Saying yes keeps people happy. Saying yes avoids conflict. Saying yes feels polite. But yes is expensive. Every time you say yes to something unimportant, you are automatically saying no to something important: your goals, your growth, your health, your peace, your future. Most people don't realize this because they treat time like it's infinite. They act like there will always be more hours tomorrow, more energy next week, more chances later. There won't be. The future is not a guarantee. And if you don't control your time now, don't expect it to magically fix itself later. It won't. The problem is simple. You've been conditioned to fear disappointment. You're terrified of someone being upset, offended, or mildly inconvenienced by your boundaries. So you sacrifice your life to avoid a few uncomfortable moments. You trade long-term fulfillment for short-term approval. You hand away your time because you're afraid of being judged. That is weakness, and you need to kill it. If you're serious about mastering time, you must start seeing no as a tool of power. It's not rude, it's not selfish, it's not disrespectful, it's strategic, it's protective, it's necessary. Saying no is how you maintain control of your attention. It's how you eliminate the noise. It's how you carve out the space you need to build a meaningful life. And let's be blunt, if you don't learn to say no, other people will run your life for you. People will use your time because theirs is poorly managed. They will dump responsibilities on you because you accept them. They will ask you for favors because you always agree. They will expect more and more from you because you never push back. Before you know it, your days are filled with commitments you never wanted, serving goals that aren't yours, and sacrificing the limited hours you desperately need for yourself. This is why being nice ruins people's lives. Not because kindness is bad, but because most people confuse kindness with submission. They think setting boundaries is cruel, when in reality, it's the only way to maintain sanity, focus, and control. Letting people overrun your time is not generosity, it's self-destruction. A major part of mastering time is realizing this. Every request has a hidden cost. A 15-minute favor often becomes an hour. A quick call becomes a draining conversation. A tiny commitment becomes a recurring obligation. A polite yes becomes a burden you carry for weeks. You must evaluate requests based on consequence, not convenience. Ask yourself, will saying yes move me closer to my goals? Will it drain my energy without giving anything meaningful in return? Is this request aligned with my priorities or someone else's? Is this something I even want to do, or am I agreeing out of guilt, fear, or habit? If the answer isn't a clear yes, then it must be a no. And before you make excuses, yes, people will get upset. Yes, someone may feel disappointed. Yes, someone may pressure you. But here's the truth you need to swallow. Nobody will protect your time for you. Nobody will prioritize your goals for you. Nobody will value your schedule more than you do. If you don't set boundaries, nobody else will set them on your behalf. When you start saying no, something powerful happens. At first, people will push back because they're used to you being available, agreeable, and compliant. But over time, they adjust. They learn that your time is valuable. They start respecting your boundaries. And the people who don't respect them were never in your corner to begin with. More importantly, you start respecting yourself. You stop stretching yourself thin. You stop taking on pointless responsibilities. You stop drowning under obligations you don't care about. You start creating mental space, emotional energy, and physical time for the things that truly matter. You gain focus, you gain clarity, you gain control. Here's the brutal truth. Mastering time is less about how you schedule your days and more about how you protect them. Anyone can make a plan, anyone can set a goal, anyone can write a to-do list. But only someone who understands the value of their time has the discipline to defend it. Saying no is that discipline. It's uncomfortable in the beginning, but transforming in the long run. It's the difference between living a life controlled by other people and living a life controlled by you. Every powerful, high-performing, deeply focused person has mastered the art of saying no. They know that time is their most valuable resource, and they refuse to waste it on obligations that don't align with their purpose. If you want the same level of control, the same clarity, the same productivity, the same sense of direction, you must stop being afraid of disappointing others and start being afraid of disappointing yourself. Your future depends on your ability to say no. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. No to distractions. No to unnecessary commitments. No to polite obligations. No to time wasters. No to anything that dilutes your focus. Master this, and you stop surviving your schedule, you start shaping it. You stop reacting to life, you start directing it. You stop being overwhelmed, you start being intentional. Time freedom doesn't come from doing more. It comes from refusing more. And the people who master that, they master their entire lives. Chapter 6. Attention is your real currency. People love to obsess over time, but they ignore the thing even more valuable: attention. Time is just the container. Attention is the content. If your attention is weak, scattered, or hijacked, then your time becomes worthless. You can sit for 8 hours pretending to work, but if your mind is drifting every few minutes, those hours might as well not exist. The harsh truth is simple. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your attention. And right now, for most people, their attention is absolutely wrecked. The modern world is engineered to steal your focus. Your phone is a slot machine. Your apps are designed to keep you hooked. Notifications attack you. Ads chase you. Entertainment floods you. Your mind is pulled in 1,000 directions before noon. You're not losing time, you're bleeding attention. And once your attention is scattered, time becomes impossible to master. Let's be blunt. Your attention has been hijacked, and you've let it happen. You allow distractions to barge in whenever they want. You keep your phone within reach at all times, like a digital leash. You jump between tasks every few minutes. You rarely do anything with full focus. You've trained your brain to expect constant stimulation, and now you wonder why focus feels impossible. The problem isn't that you lack discipline, it's that you've built a lifestyle that destroys your ability to concentrate. Attention is your real currency because whatever you consistently give your attention to becomes your life. Focus on distractions, and your life becomes fragmented. Focus on noise, and your mind becomes chaotic. Focus on other people's opinions, and your confidence collapses. Focus on pointless entertainment, and your potential rots. Focus on what matters, and your life transforms. It's that direct. The people who dominate in life aren't the ones who have the most time. They're the ones who control their attention with surgical precision. They don't let their environment dictate their focus. They don't allow random impulses to steer their day. They create conditions where deep work is normal and distractions are starved. They understand something you need to understand. Attention is a finite resource. Once you burn it on trivial crap, you don't get it back. You can recover lost money. You can recover lost energy. But lost focus? That's gone forever. This is why multitasking is one of the greatest scams of modern society. People brag about juggling 5 things at once, thinking it makes them efficient. In reality, multitasking is nothing more than rapid task switching, and every switch costs you attention. Your brain pays a toll every time you shift focus. That toll accumulates, and eventually, you're mentally exhausted without having accomplished anything meaningful. If you want to master time, you have to train your attention like an athlete trains a muscle. You need to build focus, not hope for it, not occasionally feel motivated, not wait for the perfect environment. You must intentionally create systems that strengthen your attention while eliminating anything that weakens it. Let's start with the basics. Your environment is shaping your focus more than your willpower ever will. If your phone is buzzing next to you, you're not focused. If your workspace is cluttered, your mind is cluttered. If you leave distractions in your line of sight, you will lose. You can't out-discipline a toxic environment. You have to design your surroundings to support your intention. Silencing your phone isn't enough. You need it out of reach, preferably in another room. Closing tabs isn't enough. You need a dedicated workspace for deep work, not chaos. Setting goals isn't enough. You need protected time blocks where interruptions are forbidden. The world has become a battlefield for attention, and if you don't defend yours, you'll get crushed. It's that simple. And let's be real, attention isn't just about productivity, it's about presence. Most people aren't present in their own lives. They're physically somewhere, mentally elsewhere. They're half listening, half working, half living. Their mind is so fragmented that they can't fully experience anything. Not work, not relationships, not joy, not creativity, not rest. They're always partially distracted, always mentally pulled, always split in two. This isn't a time problem, it's an attention problem. To reclaim your attention, you have to retrain your mind. You need to get comfortable with doing one thing at a time, fully. You need to rebuild your capacity for deep focus. You need to practice being mentally present. That means sitting with a task without jumping to something else. That means eliminating dopamine addictions that have destroyed your concentration. That means choosing focus even when it feels uncomfortable, especially then. At first, your brain will fight back. It's used to constant stimulation. It will crave distraction. It will scream for your phone. It will pull you toward anything easy, shallow, or pleasurable. That's not a sign of failure. That's a sign you've been living reactively for years. Push through it. Every minute of uninterrupted focus strengthens your mind. Every time you resist the urge to check your phone, your attention sharpens. Every deep work session rewires your brain. Focus isn't something you're born with. It's something you train until it becomes your default operating mode. Once you master your attention, your time finally becomes powerful. An hour of deep focus will outperform 10 hours of scattered effort. A single day of clarity will beat a week of chaos. When your attention becomes sharp, everything in your life accelerates your growth, your skills, your progress, your results. Think of attention as the lens of a camera. If the lens is blurry, the picture is worthless. If the lens is sharp, everything becomes clear. Master your attention, and time stops feeling chaotic. It stops slipping through your fingers. It stops overwhelming you. Instead, time becomes deliberate, structured, and effective. Here's the bottom line. You don't need more time. You need your mind back. You need to reclaim the attention you've handed away to distractions, dopamine, and digital noise. You need to protect your focus as fiercely as you protect your money, your health, and your goals. Attention is the currency that builds your future, and once you control where it flows, you control everything else. Master your attention, and the world stops pulling you. You start pulling the world. Chapter 7. Mastering the Small Wins. People fantasize about massive breakthroughs, the big transformation, the perfect routine, the dramatic life change that suddenly fixes everything. It's a comforting fantasy because it lets you avoid the truth. Real progress is built on boring, repetitive, unglamorous, small wins. Not dramatic leaps, not explosive motivation. Small, consistent actions repeated relentlessly. Most people don't fail because the goal is too big. They fail because their ego refuses to start small. They want the results of someone who's been disciplined for years without being willing to put in the first 5 consistent days. They want the rewards of long-term commitment without building the foundation that makes commitment even possible. They want the glory without the grind. And because the small steps feel insignificant, they skip them, not realizing those small steps were the entire path. Here's the truth you've been avoiding. Small wins run your life. Everything meaningful you've ever achieved came from compounding tiny actions, not one dramatic moment of genius or motivation. But your problem is impatience. You want the outcome faster than you're willing to build the process. You want to jump ahead instead of stacking the bricks one by one. Time mastery demands that you respect the power of small wins. Without them, your days collapse into chaos. With them, you build unstoppable momentum. The reason small wins matter so much is simple. They're the only actions you can guarantee consistently. Big wins require perfect timing, perfect energy, perfect conditions. Small wins only require you to show up. And showing up is always within your control. But most people sabotage themselves because small wins don't feel satisfying at first. Doing 10 minutes of focused work feels pointless compared to dreaming about massive achievements. Reading 5 pages feels laughable compared to imagining yourself as someone who reads a book a week. Choosing a healthy meal once feels insignificant compared to fantasizing about being fit. Your mind loves big fantasies because they feel impressive without any effort. Small wins feel unimpressive because they demand action. But action, even tiny action, is the only thing that reshapes your identity. And this is where the magic happens. Small wins accumulate, they compound, they turn into big wins over time, whether you notice or not. The compound effect is invisible at first, then undeniable later. One page becomes a chapter becomes a book. 10 minutes of practice becomes skill becomes mastery. Tiny daily progress becomes transformation. But you'll never experience that if you keep waiting for the big moment instead of stacking small ones. Let's be direct. The biggest enemy of small wins is your perfectionism. You want everything to be clean, ideal, and impressive before you begin. But perfectionism is just fear pretending to be high standards. You delay because you're scared of looking incompetent. You hesitate because you want the result before earning the habit. You procrastinate because you're terrified of being a beginner. Small wins destroy perfectionism because they force you to move. They force you to start before you feel ready. They force you to take tiny bites of the discomfort you've been avoiding for years. Another reason small wins matter is because they build trust with yourself. Right now, you don't fully trust your own promises. You say you'll start, and you don't. You say you'll improve, and you don't. You say you'll commit, and you break the commitment. Over time, your brain learns not to believe you. That's why motivation feels pointless. Your identity doesn't trust your intentions. Small wins rebuild that trust. When you complete a tiny task every day, you prove to yourself repeatedly that you follow through. Once that trust returns, discipline feels easier, and your identity shifts. You start seeing yourself as someone who acts instead of someone who just talks, someone who shows up instead of someone who makes excuses, someone who keeps commitments instead of running from them. That internal identity shift is what eventually allows you to take on bigger challenges. But without the foundation of small wins, you crumble every time. Small wins also give you emotional momentum. A finished task, even a tiny one, triggers a sense of progress. And progress is addictive. Once you feel progress, you naturally want to do more. This is why starting is so powerful. Motion creates motivation, not the other way around. People who wait to feel ready stay stuck forever because motivation doesn't come before action, it comes after. Once you understand this, you stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop setting unrealistic expectations. You stop trying to overhaul your entire life overnight. Instead, you break your goals into actions so small they're impossible to avoid. And then you do them every day, without negotiation. That's how time mastery works. Not through intensity, but through consistency. Not through dramatic effort, but through repeated effort. Not through short bursts of inspiration, but through long stretches of disciplined routine. The people you admire didn't get where they are through sudden genius. They got there by stacking small wins every day, even when they didn't feel like it. They understood that mastery is built quietly, while nobody's watching. They didn't chase fireworks, they built habits. And you need to do the same. Your life is the sum of your small wins. Every day you choose discipline over distraction, your future shifts. Every day you focus instead of procrastinate, your momentum grows. Every day you do something tiny but meaningful, you inch closer to the life you actually want. Ignore the big fantasy. Build the small reality. If you master the small wins, you master the process. If you master the process, you master your habits. If you master your habits, you master your identity. And if you master your identity, time bends in your favor. Small wins aren't optional, they're the backbone of transformation. And once you embrace them, your progress becomes inevitable. Chapter 8. The Power of Pre-Decisions. If you want to take control of your time, you need to eliminate one of the biggest sources of friction in your life: constant decision-making. People waste absurd amounts of time not on work, not on distraction, but on deciding what to do, when to do it, how to start, whether it's the right moment, whether they feel ready, whether they have the energy, whether they're in the mood. They negotiate with themselves all day long, and every negotiation drains willpower, delays action, and destroys momentum. The truth is harsh but accurate. Indecision is one of the biggest time killers in your life. You think procrastination comes from laziness, but it doesn't. Procrastination comes from decision overload. You hesitate because you haven't already decided. You delay because your brain is trying to analyze 100 tiny variables. You freeze because you left your choices open instead of committing ahead of time. This is why you need pre-decisions. A pre-decision is exactly what it sounds like. You decide once, in advance, when your mind is clear and your priorities are sharp. Then you execute later without discussion, without hesitation, and without renegotiation. No debating. No, maybe later. No, let me think about it. You already made the decision when you were thinking logically, not emotionally. This one change can transform how you use your time. When you pre-decide, you remove the mental tug-of-war between what you want short-term and what you need long-term. You lock in the action before the moment comes, so when it's time to act, your only job is to follow through, not to think, not to weigh options, not to negotiate. Most people fail because they are making decisions in the moment when they're tired, stressed, distracted, or emotionally compromised. Of course they choose the easy option. Of course they avoid the hard work. Of course they drift back into bad habits. You can't trust your moment-to-moment impulses to control your time. You need a system that makes the choice for you. That system is pre-decision. Think about your mornings. You waste precious time deciding when to wake up, what to do first, whether to look at your phone, whether to exercise, whether to eat something healthy. All of these micro-decisions drain your mental battery before your day even begins. Meanwhile, disciplined people don't negotiate with themselves after they wake up. Everything is already decided the night before. That's why their mornings feel sharp and yours feel messy. Pre-decisions apply everywhere. If you consistently struggle to work out, stop deciding each day whether you feel like working out. Pre-decide the exact days, times, and workouts. When that moment comes, you don't think, you act. If you waste hours deciding what to work on, stop deciding in the moment. Pre-decide your top task the night before. When you begin the day, you don't drift, you execute. If you constantly fall into distractions, stop trying to be stronger. Pre-decide the boundaries. For example, phone stays in another room during work, or social media only after 7 p.m., or notifications off all day. Once the rule is pre-decided, you aren't tempted to bargain with yourself. Pre-decisions turn discipline into automation. And here's the part people don't realize. Pre-decisions save your willpower for the things that actually require it. Your brain is terrible at making decisions under pressure. It defaults to comfort, shortcuts, impulses, and dopamine. When you pre-decide, you bypass that weakness entirely. You remove the opportunity to choose the wrong thing. This is why highly successful people seem unusually disciplined. They're not relying on willpower. They're relying on systems. They're not constantly motivated. They're following pre-made decisions that eliminate uncertainty. The power of pre-decisions becomes even clearer when you look at your patterns. Think about how often you waste time waffling between choices. Should I start now or later? Should I work on this or that? Should I rest or push through? Should I scroll for a bit or get moving? Should I make progress or avoid discomfort? Every hesitation is a time leak. Every hesitation increases stress. Every hesitation stops your momentum. Indecision is the silent enemy of your life. Pre-decisions kill it before it begins. But let's get painfully honest for a moment. The reason you avoid pre-decisions is because they lock you in. They trap you in accountability. They remove the escape routes you secretly rely on. When you pre-decide, you're committing to a standard. When you don't pre-decide, you're giving yourself permission to choose the easy path later. You crave flexibility because flexibility gives you excuses. But freedom doesn't come from flexibility, it comes from structure. Freedom comes from eliminating unnecessary choices. Freedom comes from building systems that protect you from your own impulses. If you want to master your time, you need to pre-decide your life's non-negotiables. When you wake up, when you work, when you rest, what your top priority is each day, what you do first every morning, what you do last every night. When you exercise, when you unplug, when you focus deeply, when you stop caring what the world wants from you. These aren't things you should decide in the moment, these are things you should decide once and respect forever. Some people resist this because they think pre-decisions make life boring or rigid. In reality, the opposite happens. Routine creates stability, and stability creates freedom. When your mind isn't cluttered with constant choices, you gain clarity, energy, creativity, and time. Pre-decisions give you mental space. Pre-decisions give you discipline without effort. Pre-decisions give you momentum that compounds. Pre-decisions give you control. And here's the biggest payoff. The more you pre-decide, the more you trust yourself. You start seeing consistency you've never seen before. You follow through more often. You feel more capable. You stop questioning whether you can change because you're living the proof. Momentum becomes natural. Discipline becomes automatic. Progress becomes predictable. Pre-decisions turn time from something you chase into something you command. Once you stop negotiating with yourself, everything gets easier. The task, the habit, the process, the goal. You stop fighting internal battles. You stop wasting mental energy. You stop drifting through your days. And you start living with intention instead of impulse. Pre-decide your life, and you won't have to fight for control. You'll already have it. Chapter 9. The Myth of Balance. People spend their whole lives chasing balance, as if there's some perfect ratio of work, rest, ambition, leisure, socializing, and self-care that will magically make everything smooth and effortless. They imagine a peaceful life where everything fits neatly into place, nothing too overwhelming, nothing too demanding, nothing too chaotic. It's a comforting illusion, and that's exactly why it ruins people. Balance, in the way most people imagine it, does not exist. Life is not symmetrical. It does not give you equal seasons, equal pressures, equal demands, or equal opportunities. Some seasons require you to sprint, some require you to rest, some require sacrifice, some require intensity, some require rebuilding, some require endurance. The belief that you can evenly distribute your time across all areas of life at all times is not only unrealistic, it's destructive. The myth of balance stops people from committing fully. You hold yourself back because you're trying to keep everything even. You avoid going all in on something meaningful because you're afraid of letting another area dip for a while. You spread yourself thin because you think that's what responsible adults do. You chase harmony instead of progress. And in the process, you achieve nothing of significance because you never let yourself experience the deep focus required for real growth. Here's the truth you've been avoiding. Real progress is imbalanced by nature. When someone is building a business, they're not living a balanced life. They're pouring their energy into that mission. When someone is training for a competition, balance doesn't exist. Discipline dominates. When someone is healing from burnout, Balance doesn't matter. Rest becomes the priority. When someone is raising a newborn, forget balance, survival, and care take the lead. When someone is mastering a skill, balance takes a backseat, repetition and practice rule. Every meaningful transition in your life will require imbalance. But most people resist that because imbalance feels uncomfortable. It feels like something is being neglected, like they're failing in other areas, like they're losing control. They confuse imbalance with failure, when in reality, imbalance is the very structure of growth. The reality is simple. Your life is a series of seasons, not a perfectly even pie chart. Each season has a dominant priority, something that requires more of your time, energy, and attention. Your job is not to balance everything every day. Your job is to identify your season and act accordingly. The problem is that most people fight their season. They're in a season that requires focus, but they chase pleasure. They're in a season that requires discipline, but they chase comfort. They're in a season that requires sacrifice, but they chase distraction. They're in a season that requires rest, but they chase productivity guilt. This mismatch creates chaos. When your actions don't match your season, you end up tired, confused, frustrated, and constantly feeling behind, not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing the wrong things for the season you're in. Time mastery is about seasonal alignment, not balance. It's about making your effort match your reality. Sometimes your career will require more of you. Sometimes your family will. Sometimes your health will. Sometimes your personal growth will. Sometimes your finances will. The season dictates the focus. You don't need to balance every area perfectly. You need to ensure that every area receives the right kind of attention for the right season. When you embrace this, something powerful happens. Guilt fades. You stop feeling guilty for not doing everything at once. You stop feeling guilty for focusing deeply on one thing. You stop feeling guilty for letting some things rest temporarily. You stop feeling guilty for prioritizing what matters right now. Most of your stress doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from feeling like you're supposed to be doing something else all the time. Balance creates this false pressure that every area must be equally perfect. That pressure destroys people. Let's be brutally clear. Chasing balance makes you mediocre. It keeps you from going all in. It prevents you from focusing long enough to see results. It spreads your time thin. It keeps your energy shallow. It forces you into half efforts and half results. People who achieve greatness in any form accept imbalance. They lean into their season, they commit fully, they let their priorities shift when needed, and because of that, their growth accelerates. But here's the part people misunderstand. Embracing imbalance doesn't mean abandoning everything else. It means managing the other areas at a maintenance level while one area gets your full attention. You don't let them collapse, you keep them steady. Balance is not equality. Balance is appropriate distribution. You maintain your health while you focus on your career. You maintain your relationships while you focus on your goals. You maintain your finances while you focus on personal development. Some things get 10%, some things get 20%, some things get 60%. That's not imbalance, that's intelligent allocation. When you stop chasing the fantasy and start respecting the season you're in, your life becomes clearer, simpler, and more powerful. You no longer waste time trying to give everything equal effort. Instead, you give the most important thing the attention it deserves. The myth of balance also promotes another dangerous belief, that life should feel calm if you're doing it right. Wrong. Growth is uncomfortable. Transformation creates friction. Focus requires sacrifice. Discipline demands boundaries. Progress will feel unbalanced because it is. The goal is not a perfectly calm existence. The goal is a meaningful one. Balance whispers, "Don't go too hard." Balance whispers, "Don't make people uncomfortable." Balance whispers, "Play it safe." Balance whispers, "Slow down." Balance whispers, "Make everything easy to manage." Balance protects comfort, not progress. If you want to master time, you need to stop worshipping balance and start mastering seasons. You need to accept that life will never be evenly distributed, and you need the wisdom to shift your focus as your priorities evolve. Some seasons you will grind. Some seasons you will recover. Some seasons you will learn. Some seasons you will build. Some seasons you will slow down. Some seasons you will expand. Some seasons you will cut back. Some seasons you will transform. You don't need balance, you need clarity. You don't need equal effort, you need aligned effort. You don't need perfection, you need direction. When you stop chasing a myth and start living with intention, you stop feeling behind, you stop feeling scattered, you stop feeling overwhelmed. You finally start feeling in control. Master the season you're in, and you master your life. Chapter 10. Time as your legacy. Most people treat time like a daily inconvenience, something to manage, something to get through, something to fill, something to survive. They think of time as a schedule, not a story, as hours, not identity, as tasks, not legacy. That's why they waste it so casually. They don't realize that every hour spent is a piece of their life permanently gone. Every minute is a decision about who they are becoming. Every choice is a line in the story they'll eventually be remembered for. Here's the truth. Your time is your legacy, not your money, not your accomplishments, not your titles, not your possessions, not your status. Your time, how you spend it, where you invest it, what you create with it, is the story people will tell when you're gone. Your legacy isn't something you build at the end of your life. It's something you're building right now, intentionally or accidentally. Every hour is a brick. Every decision is a brushstroke. And most people have no idea what they're painting because they never stop to consider the bigger picture. They're too busy reacting to the noise of daily life. This chapter forces you to zoom out. You've been thinking about time in terms of productivity, discipline, and habits. That matters. But time mastery isn't truly about efficiency, it's about meaning. It's about deciding what deserves space in your lifespan and what doesn't. It's about shaping a life that reflects your values instead of your fears. It's about doing things that matter instead of things that merely occupy you. Let's start with something uncomfortable but necessary. People leave two kinds of legacies, intentional and accidental. An intentional legacy is built through deliberate choices, through meaningful work, through purpose, through focus, through discipline, through contribution, through creation, through service. These people look back at their life and see a narrative they're proud of. An accidental legacy is built through distraction, through avoidance, through excuses, through mindless habits, through fear of failure, through fear of discomfort, through procrastination. These people end their lives drowning in regret because they realize they spent decades doing things that meant nothing. Your time choices determine which legacy you're building. And here's the blunt truth. If you don't decide your purpose, distraction will decide it for you. If you don't choose your priorities, other people will assign them to you. If you don't take control of your time, you'll spend your life helping other people build their legacies while yours rots. Time is the ultimate currency because it cannot be earned back, borrowed, refunded, or delayed. Once the hour passes, it's permanently sealed into your history. And the terrifying part? Most people live as if they'll have endless time left. They delay dreams. They postpone change. They wait for the right moment. There is no right moment. There is only now. And now is disappearing. Legacy begins in the present, not the future. Think about what you want people to remember, not in some poetic, philosophical sense, but concretely. Do you want to be known as someone who built something meaningful, someone who grew, someone who contributed, someone who lived with intention? Or do you want to be seen as someone who coasted, distracted themselves, wasted their potential, and never realized what they could have become? Your time choices answer that question long before anyone else does. Every day, you're either reinforcing or sabotaging your legacy. Choosing discipline reinforces it. Choosing distraction sabotages it. Choosing growth reinforces it. Choosing comfort sabotages it. Choosing purpose reinforces it. Choosing excuses sabotages it. Your life is simply the accumulated effect of these daily choices. If you want to build a legacy worth remembering, you need to understand the difference between activity and impact. People spend years being active, busy, occupied, constantly doing something, yet create almost no impact. They move, but they don't progress. They exhaust themselves without building anything meaningful. Impact comes from concentrated effort directed at things that matter. Activity comes from scattered energy spent on things that don't. Legacy is built through impact, not busyness. This means you need to define your meaningful work, the thing that outlives you, the thing that improves others, the thing that reflects who you are at your core. It doesn't have to be world-shaking. It doesn't have to be grand. Impact doesn't require fame. It requires depth, consistency, and intention. For some people, legacy is building a business that changes lives. For others, it's creating art, knowledge, or systems that endure. For others, it's raising strong, compassionate children. For others, it's helping others heal or grow. For others, it's dedicating themselves to mastery in their craft. Whatever it is, it requires time, deliberate, protected, purposeful time. But here's the twist. Legacy is not only about accomplishment, it's also about presence. Most people rush through life so fast, they miss the actual living. They're physically present, but mentally absent. They're around their loved ones, but never fully with them. Their minds are always in the next task, the next message, the next worry. You can't build a meaningful legacy if you're never truly present. Attention is part of legacy. Presence is part of legacy. Connection is part of legacy. Character is part of legacy. The way you use your time shapes who you are, and who you are shapes how people remember you. Time mastery is moral, not mechanical. It's not just about getting more done, it's about becoming someone worth remembering. Your time becomes meaningful only when your life becomes meaningful. And your life becomes meaningful only when your actions align with who you want to be. So ask yourself, what will your hours say about you? What story are you writing through your choices? What habits will outlive you? What work will represent you when you're gone? Who will you have helped, influenced, or inspired? What version of yourself will be remembered, the one you were proud of, or the one you settled for? Your legacy is not a someday project, it's a right now project. Every day you waste is a page torn out of your story. Every day you live intentionally adds another chapter to your impact. Master your time, and you master your legacy. Because when your hours are aligned with purpose, your life becomes the kind of story people don't forget. Your time is your footprint on this world. Make it worth leaving. Time will never stop for you. It will never slow down, never pause, never wait for you to get your life together. The clock does not care about your excuses, your fears, your distractions, or your habits. It only cares about what you do with the hours you're given. And the truth is simple. Those hours are all you have. They are your power, your potential, your opportunity, your future, and eventually, your legacy. You've spent your life believing time was the problem. It never was. The problem was your story, your patterns, your lack of clarity, your refusal to choose what matters, your fear of saying no, your scattered attention, your obsession with balance, your hesitation to act, and your unwillingness to start small. But now you see the truth. Time is neutral. Time is obedient. Time follows your decisions. Master yourself, and you master time. Everything in this audiobook has pointed to one core realization. Your life is shaped by how you use your hours, not by luck, not by motivation, not by circumstances, by choice. You don't need more time. You need more intention. You need more honesty. You need more discipline. You need more focus. You need more courage to live in alignment with what actually matters. When you claim ownership of your attention, your priorities, your choices, and your identity, the chaos disappears. The excuses disappear. The overwhelm disappears. What's left is clarity, and clarity is freedom. From this point forward, your time is no longer something you manage. It's something you command. You decide where it goes. You decide what deserves it. You decide what your life becomes. And once you realize that, everything changes. The world won't remember what you intended to do. It will remember what you actually did. Make your hours count. Make your days deliberate. Make your legacy undeniable. Your time is now, and it always has been.